All right, everybody, welcome to the director commentary for Hot Rocket Lake 2.5. My name is Zach Inyard. I am the writer and director, producer, basically jack of all trades for this production. What you're going to see throughout this director commentary is in the lower left corner, you'll see the inspiration for the production, the original, as I want to call it, Hot Rockin' Feet 2 by Videocraft Productions and Barefoot International back in 1994. So what we try to do here is basically 30 years later, a refreshed take on this classic promo video that inspired a lot of us as we were, coming of age in our skiing careers. I remember seeing it for the first time back when I was about 10 years old and just being inspired by it and, putting a little bit of a family twist on it. There's lots of callbacks to the original that you'll see as we roll into the credits here. I tried to give it the old school VHS look with a little bit of tracking artifacts, some hesitation on the animation, stuff like that, but tried my best to faithfully reproduce even down to the guitar scenes with Chad there. Some of the key elements that really made Hot Rockin' Feet 2 stand out, and just wanted to, create something that was basically based on the soundtrack and followed the footprint that Hot Rockin' Feet 2 did. But since we're not solely focused on barefooting and it's more of a family show, I decided to give it a Hot Rockin' Lake 2.5 as kind of a nod to the original. But you'll see the original inspiration playing in the bottom left corner as we go through this video. I'll tell you a little bit about some of the behind the scenes stuff, ideas that I had, processes that we went through when shooting parts of this, and how the editing process went. There's going to be a lot of that information and stuff in there, so if that's stuff you're interested in, please stay tuned. It's going to be kind of a cool trek walking through this production that went through the majority of the summer, late summer of 2024, and then post-production all the way down to October of 2024 when it premiered on YouTube. So it's been the most ambitious project I've ever put together. Had lots of shorter lake videos and little mini features and stuff, but this was an entire production all on its own. So we'll get into the details of that coming up. The original Hot Rockin' Feet 2 features a story of this nerdy kid named Matt who goes to barefoot ski school at Barefoot International, learns how to ski barefoot, and just, becomes the coolest guy around. Now, when I originally was trying to come up with a concept for what to do for this video, my original idea was to focus on my niece Catherine and make it so she was learning how to ski, because she already knew how to ski, so we could kind of fake a little bit that she was learning, show her trying and falling and various things like that. But I decided that in order to be fair to both my niece and my nephew, kind of get them some equal airtime, and also just the feasibility of shooting all of that intentional footage with their schedule coming to the lake over the summer, with the time that they had that overlapped with me, because I was only there for about 5 weeks. It just wasn't feasible, so I decided to take a different approach and make it about a man's journey coming back to the place where he grew up, spending time on the lake, and just looking at, this whole, what the lake means to him and his family through that lens versus, a coming-of-age story that was kind of the original concept. So had to make sure to get Munchie in there. Munchie always enjoys being at the lake, being out there with Reagan. There's some of this in the behind the scenes of them throwing these planes and Munchie chasing after them. I had to come up with a little bit of a setup to eat some time up in the music as we headed to what would be in Hot Rockin' Feet 2, the first part of the skiing instruction. So just kind of some establishment of the family and whatnot, and Dad uncovering the boat, where if you looked earlier the boat was already uncovered, but pay no attention to that. Also this part, we're going out to find the good water to ski. This was actually after we were all done and on the way back, because our house is sort of like on the shore to the left part of the screen right there. and Eli was driving us on the way back. But those little tricks of photography, you record pretty much everything you think you're going to need and a whole bunch of stuff you don't, and then you end up putting it together in a way that makes sense with the narrative as you continue to go through. Now, to mirror the sort of the concept of Matt learning to ski in Hot Rockin' Feet 2, I still did use parts of what I had originally planned to do with Catherine as to show her learning to ski. She got up skiing last year, but would she remember to do it this year? There's just, a nice little progression to show, hey, we're all remembering how to ski. Here's some different little things. It fills out this part in parallel to the original inspiration a little bit better. And then we were able to get some footage of my nephew on the kneeboard that really helped sell a couple important callbacks that I thought would look good as as they went through with Hot Rockin' Feet 2 and this new production. Don't mind my butt crack there a little bit. This was kind of a first draft of sorts, where the idea was to get out and stabilize the board for him, but the first attempt was just all wrong because he got pulled away from me where I couldn't even do anything, and the pull was sideways. We figured we'd try it again. After we did this a few times, realized how exhausting it was. We went to just starting them on the platform, getting the boat up to speed, and then just letting the rope out. Ended up working a whole lot better, but this kind of let me be a participant in it. And I was glad to see him get up there. It was kind of funny, though. They left me down at that end of the lake for like almost 45 minutes. They decided to go do more skiing down at the other end. It's kind of hard to see, but there's a little speck there in the background. You can see that's my head still way back there. And my mom was recording some of this in the boat. And you'll see sometimes when it's obvious it's not me behind the camera, that there's some jerky camera motions and stuff like that. And a lot of what I had to do in post-production was to kind of fix some of the imperfections of the other people that were filming with some aggressive keyframing and some, sort of re-canvassing of the shots just to try and get things, where they were more stable. I have the benefit of knowing what it is I'm looking for as I'm recording it. They're just kind of recording. So while it's helpful to have other people that can record, it requires a lot of extra effort in post-production to make sure that, those things can look better, I guess. This section was one of my favorites, actually, just because when I first presented the concept to my dad as like him being featured as the Lake Manitou legend, he was hesitant. Didn't really like that title, and I said that's the perfect reason why you're a legend. Legends don't want the title. They're bestowed that title by other people, and I defy anybody to claim that he is not a legend on this lake over the last 30 plus years, that the generations of people he's taught to ski and everything. It was a fitting tribute to his time on the lake over these last 30 years. And in a way, give me a section where I could parallel, world champion barefooter Mike Seipel as the featured talent in Hot Rockin' Feet 2 to come with my dad to showcase, all the things he's done over the last 30 years here on this lake. And, some of this footage is from very old VHS. Some of it's from, this summer. So the summer when it was recorded. But it was kind of nice to get his longline tumble turn in there. That's one of my favorite things I ever captured of him. But he's a champion, and he's skied every kind of skiing there is over these years, and he may not be a professional level competitor at it, but he can do it all. And that's kind of what I said in my little segue is he's done it all over the years, and he certainly has. So it was nice to be able to feature him in this way. And I remember thinking how I was going to match the shot-for-shot still frame capture to the freeze frame on the end of the original video, when I saw this final shot, I saw that video clip where he smiled on the boom, and I just knew that was going to be the one to close that out. As we segued into what would be the ski show part of this production, of course I had to, put everything kind of into chapters so I could match everything up as we went through. And the ski show was a cool part of the Hot Rockin' Feet 2 part, where they did a ski show for the girls on the beach. And as it's kind of a family feature, I was like, well, I can't really do that. So we just decided to incorporate the neighbors into it, the Kernets and Shirley on the other side. Just add them as characters you haven't necessarily seen yet, but that we're going to be a participant in this. So, of course, we have to open up with some swamp turns. These were shot on a single morning. I mean, obviously, the compilation of the ski show was not a ski show. We put together a bunch of film of us doing different things at different times. We shot the swamp turns all in the morning. We probably did, 5 or 6 different ones, like 3 with me in the boat, and then we did some with the drone. We did all kinds of. We actually broke the platform on the boat, as you can see during the behind the scenes footage. One of the swamp turns actually broke a board off the platform, and we had to screw it back on. So that was kind of fun, but a lot of fun for the kids. They enjoyed this, and we got to feature Chad a little bit with the drone shot there of him playing the guitar. That was a fun day shooting that. Yeah, it was cool that he was willing to participate and bring his guitar out on the boat. People had no idea what we were doing when we were out there recording that. But I had lots of slow-mo footage of the kids on the tubes, and lots of video of them skiing, and some of it in better resolution than others because it was filmed on other people's phones. And I found that a lot of the footage that I went to use from other people's phones was from them recording it in portrait orientation, so I was already getting like 1080p resolution when I'm rendering the project in 4K, and not only do I have to recanvas it, but then I have to expand it, and it makes the resolution look really, really bad. So, we worked with what we had, and for the most part, it came out pretty good, I think. I wish I was able to, record all of the stuff myself, have drone shots and in-boat shots on everything, but it's just, it is not possible. And so, this is upcoming one of my favorite parts. People, if they haven't seen the original Hot Rockin' Feet 2, will never understand this part right here, where the guy is flexing in slow motion, because it looks so ridiculous for me to be doing it. But it was one of those things that it just, it popped up, and I happen to think that is one of those key callbacks that I have to have. Absolutely have to have, as corny as it looks. I mean, the whole thing was kind of meant to be corny anyway. I wanted to do a shot of people skiing behind the Wave Runner, but we didn't have time to shoot that, so we worked with what we had. And again, Catherine's butt, her butt ruined so many shots. I don't know why or what was going on, but every time we turned around, her butt was in the camera, and it was just like, what are you doing? So there was a lot of good stuff that I ended up not being able to use because of Catherine's butt. But while Matt in this section is thinking and dreaming about being a ski champion, I decided to make this section a tribute of sorts to the kids, to kind of feature them a little bit, doing some cool jumps on the swim platform, and recorded all this in slow motion. And this section here was probably took me the longest to edit, just because I had so many effects and slow-mo timing events that I was trying to work around and get everything to line up perfectly with the music. And so it was an interesting one to do, especially because when I was shooting for it, I hadn't yet decided that was what I was going to do in this section. So it ended up working out pretty well that I had the setup with the time lapse of the boat journey to kind of lead us into it, and then sort of feature them in this way, which was pretty cool. They really liked this part. I was really kind of pleased with how well this whole section turned out, being that when you shoot anything in slow motion on an iPhone, you get it in 1080p, which doesn't look bad, but if I would have done it through the DJI Osmo stabilization gimbal, I could have gotten it slow-mo at 4K, which probably would have made it look better, but that's one of those things that I'll learn for next time. It was just easier for me to hold the camera than use it on the gimbal when we were doing these little slow-mo shots. Again, more VHS look. In retrospect, I should have had them like high five on that ending shot. Would have been really cool. Our neighbor Shirley had asked to be in the feature, and I didn't come up with this idea until a little bit late in the shooting schedule, to have her set up what would be the video of the falls. As Matt's walking with the ski instructor, they show him, hey, here's this video about the falls. So Shirley and I are talking about her watching the ski show and how everybody was so polished, nobody falls, and then I get to use that as a setup to the falls video. And this section took us like 90 minutes to shoot for all of 30 seconds that it is, probably. This section, though, the falls, this was the first section that I completed, or at least completed a rough outline of when I was going through the production phase of this. I completed this before a lot of the principal photography was done, as sort of a proof of concept, just to see if I could get the timing right, if I could make it match up with some of the callbacks to the original. It was amazing how similar some of the falls were that I was able to isolate. And I originally thought, when I went through and did the pre-production outline on this, that we'd need like 32 falls. And I didn't know if we had that many. And by the time I went through hours and hours and hours and hours of video footage, just taking like, 7 seconds before a fall and 3 seconds after, just getting all kinds of little 10-second clips of falls, I had 9.5 minutes of falls. And this whole section is less than 3 minutes. So I had to really, really sort and find the best ones, get some of the kids, get some of the current ones, get the best of the old ones, try and find the ones that matched up with some of the falls that they had in the original Hot Rockin' Feet 2. And some of them, as I went through, I had in the original first couple of iterations, I probably did 7 or 8 different versions of this. But eventually when better ones got picked, I had to take out the old ones and put new ones in. Of course, we had to have the Scott Flop, the most legendary fall in the last 30 years on Lake Manitou. And it's cool in a lot of ways how I felt like this was just making itself, how the clips came together in such a way that it fits so well with the music. Everybody loved this section. It was such a cool flashback watching everybody wipe out, and featured this one in the trailer of Dad just eating it. Oof, yeah. Scott and Chris Clayton, Ryan Bitzer, and of course, when it came right down to it, I knew which clip I was going to use for the final freeze frame, and it had to be Ryan Bitzer flying off the boom on his first barefooting attempt ever. I did have to skip ahead a little bit on the Hot Rockin' Feet 2 version of this because there's a whole section that doesn't come on the music, and it would have made the setup increasingly long, and it was already too long anyway, so I had to cut it down a little bit, so we skipped ahead, but we're still on where the music matches up. As Matt learns his tricks, I wanted to have a spot where we could show a progression of my dad getting out there and doing a long line and going for his first barefoot of the season. We shot 3 attempts at this. We actually used the second one first, so this is his second attempt, because he got up on the first one, and then he couldn't get up on the second or third, and well, that's not very fun cinematically, is it? I mean, you gotta show some attempt and some progression. So in post, we did it a little bit differently. Just edited the order a little differently so that it would, see him taking a couple falls and then the triumphantly getting up at the end. This was the third attempt, which if you catch that part in the behind the scenes, it says my third and final attempt as he gets into the water there. But it was one of those things that I wanted to get this because the times he's getting to barefoot are getting fewer and fewer, and these are ones that you want to have for posterity. I think when we shot this, he was 71 years old, which is a remarkable feat in itself. So just to see that he was able to get up, even though it was short, I mean, that's a pretty good victory. But it gave us a nice segue into the end, the end roll of the movie, where in Hot Rockin' Feet 2, where everybody's learned their tricks and everybody's the professional and all that, and kind of segue into just a montage of family skiing. We were able to get some footage from a couple summers ago. The kids look a little bit younger there, of course, but this is from 30 years, so it's from everything we have was included. I didn't take anything off limits, and it was just a lot of fun putting this together, and finding this old footage of me. Gosh, this is probably like 2008 or 9. But my sister and me from last summer, I think. Dan specifically asked that we include that with him and Chris Clayton on the dual tumble turns. It's just one of those cool things. I'm glad we have those old VHS and that I made the digital copies of them all those years ago, because who knows what shape they'd be in nowadays. But in Hot Rockin' Feet 2, this end section is actually a little bit longer. They loop one of the songs, loop it over again to lengthen the segment at the end, but I elected to shorten it down a little bit because the project itself was getting a little bit long. I wanted it to be like less than 25 minutes. It ended up being about 27, which was okay. I didn't want it to stretch over 30 minutes. It just, I didn't want it to be so long that it dragged on too much, and I wanted it to be a nice watchable little film without taking too long. All kinds of, I haven't barefooted probably since then. That was like 2008, I want to say, from the Barefoot Father's Day little video I did. One of the cooler things, I actually thought there was that we did have video of 3 people on the boom at once in an old VHS, but with the VHS being in 4:3 aspect ratio, I couldn't crop it down and reformat it for widescreen without running into issues. Plus, as I mentioned earlier, Catherine's butt being in the way. Back in those days, guess whose butt was in the way? Not Catherine's, but Catherine's mom, aka my sister Hillary. Her butt was in the way of so many shots back then, so Catherine, I guess, gets it from her mom. But I thought it'd be a cool way to end this. This is actually from 2023 of Dad and me skiing there. And as we kind of put tie the bow on it here at the end with family time at the lake, it was especially important to me that we hit a couple of notes as this thing closed out, because in the original it's kind of like, hey Matt, you did great, you're real natural, all this talent, and then he goes and some babe who happens to be Mike Seibel's wife asks him if he wants a ride in the Corvette. Which, I'm not going to close it out like that. I just wanted it to be a focus on the family as it had been. And I got this idea off a shot that I did in the morning of like a drone pan away from out in front of the pier. And I thought, since the production starts on a sunrise, why not finish it on a sunset, just to tie a nice little bow on it. And this shot, I think I shot it probably 6 different times on the very last night before I was scheduled to leave and go back to Las Vegas. So it was just kind of a spur of the moment thing. Charged up some batteries and did this take. And when I did this one, as I was standing just inside the house watching it on the monitor as I was piloting the drone, I was like, this is the one, I got it. But earlier, the lake reflection was just too much. The sun wasn't on the horizon, but this one just ended up being absolutely perfect, looking out or 18th Street, Mitchell Drive, and Highway 14 as it goes out to the west. Just everything lined up just perfectly. And I guess that's kind of the theme of this production, of how much of it just seemed to fit so well. And as I was going through, I was just amazed by how well everything lined up. Even some stuff I didn't intentionally, mean to line up. Somebody that watched it told me that they thought it was cool how during the intro to the ski show where I said, heck yeah, let's do a ski show, that my mouth just happened to be moving right with the heck yeah voiceover, and I didn't intend that at all. Never even noticed it until he pointed it out to me. And so, it's just little stuff like that that just made me think that this was a very cool thing to do. Finding the soundtrack for this was actually kind of a fun project, and what started the inspiration for all of this. I was just using Shazam. Using Shazam on the original to try and figure out what these songs were, and then just listening to them as I was driving to Indiana, just trying to get a visualization of how I thought this would look. And some kind of followed the initial visualization, some did not. But I'm overall just very, very happy with how all this turned out. And of course, I have to credit all of the original artists. They don't prevent the YouTube video from being seen or shown anywhere, but can't monetize it. Not like I probably would anyway, but it's nice that it doesn't limit its visibility. But I found that InShot was very, very good for a lot of this. Credits take forever to render. However, I found a couple of workarounds that worked pretty well. Oh man, so such a lot of fun putting this together. And of course, getting to use all of this footage from Lake Manitou for, 33 years of footage we've got. And there's so much that got cut that I couldn't include in there, but it's just nice that we have all that. And I thought it fitting, especially because of all the other families that are featured in this, and all of them that would watch it, to pay a proper tribute to what I consider to be the great Lake Manitou families. Just there was so much that that made the lake special growing up, and those families were a huge part of it. I actually did a half-hour interview with my parents sitting out there on the pergola, just talking about how they got to the lake. And I thought it'd be a cool little post-credit scene to just mention how they got to the lake and what the lake means to them, and just how important it is for family at the lake. And that's the main takeaway that I want for all of this, is that it'll hold a special place in my heart forever. And I was so glad to be able to do it. So thanks for watching, and thanks for listening to my director commentary. Take care, everyone.